Okay, so let's take a look at Marawan's breaststroke. Here we go. Now, let's stop it here because we see our first problem. We started reasonably well. That was lovely all the way through. And then we're in the right line, and suddenly, here we go, we're going to take a pull. Now that's the position, effectively, just there, where Marawan's head should be broaching the surface. If it's not cutting the surface, then that is instant disqualification. That would obviously be a problem. So we have to make sure that at that point we're actually broaching the surface with our head, otherwise we've got a problem. Now it's a very jerky stroke. You can see Marawan is pushing his head down and pulling it up again. And that's not really ideal. And what we get is Marawan is really the whole body from his hands to his legs is in this position below the water. And what we'd like to see effectively is that he raises his whole body so that he doesn't have to do this up and down with his head. His head, yes, will come up above and below the water, but he's actually lowering his head down. You'll see it in a second. Into that position. So now the whole body is below the surface. And really we want to be doing this much closer to the surface if we possibly can. There we go. And again, pushing the hands forward and down is not as good as trying to push them forward. So we really want to make everything higher in the water than it currently is. There he goes. But you see, it's a very jerky stroke where everything comes to a stop, every single stroke. Okay, now let's just take this, looking at this from the second side. Now notice, we're in a similar position as we were before, and Marawan's head has broached the surface, so he can do this correctly. That's a perfectly acceptable breakout in breaststroke, where he's raising his head as he comes to halfway through the first pull, so that's good. So we know Marawan can do it. We still get that jerkiness in his stroke, as you can see. And effectively, you can see where he's pushing his hands through into that position. Really, we want them into that position, pushing them into that position and raising his head out of the water. It's just making all of these angles slightly wrong. If we extend everything, everything's just slightly wrong and below the surface. Now, if we go slightly forward, that, in effect, is a really nice arm position. So Marawan has it within him, I think, to be a reasonably good breaststroker. So that's happening. But the hands in breaststroke should never come really behind the shoulders. They have to stay in front of the shoulders. Otherwise, the elbows get sucked into the body. Once they're sucked into the body, you're stuck. And you see this staccato breaststroke. Stop here, then start again as you go forward and push. You can see that staccato movement as it comes forward. I'll just stop it there. The angle that he's creating in the water is about 26 degrees. And as I say, really we want everything to be level on the surface if we possibly can. But Marawan does have a reasonably good pull forward. You see that really nice shape that he's getting with his arms. And if that now drove in front of his chest, that would be a good breaststroke. So what we've got to get him to do is get more in line, not lifting his head up, get his head straight, pushing his chest into the water so we raise the hips up, and keep this shape in front of his chin so that we can actually have a really good streamlined breaststroke. Now, the other thing that's happening is his timing's slightly off. He's kicking now, and you'll see he starts pulling at the same time. Effectively, before he kicks, he should be in the streamlined position. So that's the position, except up on the surface that we should be kicking in, but we should be kicking throughout in that streamlined position. Our arm should not go into the stroke. That is now presenting a wall to the water, and it's stopping his kick from being as effective as it can. Okay, we're now going to take a quick look at Marawan's kick, which is incredibly important in breaststroke. And one thing to note here is the position of his feet there. Let's just push that down. You can see that's odd. We're not in line, and breaststroke has to be symmetrical. If it's not symmetrical, you actually get disqualified. So this leg position could feasibly get him disqualified in a race. That's something we really do have to address. You can see it happens that he's not symmetrical quite often. If we go back in this kick, which won't for some reason do it, there we go. You can see it's not symmetrical again. So we've got to make that symmetrical as he comes through there. Now, if you look, kicking the wall there, at his turnout of his ankles, that's really nice, and that's exceptionally good. But what we have is Marawan kicking outwards from that position. So he's turning his ankles out really nicely, and effectively he's pushing outwards. You can see the direction of his push. What we prefer to a large extent, because that's wasted there, is we'd like him to push backwards and not outwards, and then snap his feet together. I think snapping his feet together will cure this problem of actually not being aligned at the back. So we've got a reasonably good kick, but we need to do one or two things. There we go, we're odd again, so we're not being even on the kick, not being symmetrical. You can see that all the way through. So we've got to get him kicking backwards as opposed to outwards. Yeah, we're kicking outwards there as opposed to backwards. So if we draw two lines, we would like his feet to come from there to there, and from there to there, and then effectively snap together at the back, so that we really have a clapping feet, if we like. And that's all we have to do really to get his feet and legs working better in breaststroke.